I'd now like to introduce to you George Walton. And George has been active in designing and in planning transportation facilities and programs and systems here in the Tampa Bay area and in Tampa for many years. And he's going to share with us an understanding and knowledge of what's the current status of transportation plans here in Tampa, why they're that way, what we can hope for the future. So here's George Walton.
Great. Thank you very much, Tim. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. My topic is transit, and I know this surprises you, but we hear it everywhere we go. Transit, that's the answer. I guarantee it's on half the things that you wrote down on your table tonight. I guarantee every forum that we've been to, transit is the answer. But we got to be very, very careful to understand what transit is and how it's applied. We tend to get into this transit envy thing. There's the whole Shelbyville monorail and the Simpsons episode and how that plays out. But we all travel, we all hear it, we see examples. We go to Transit Mart, we get in the trains, we get on the buses, we try it on, it looks good, feels good, and then we get back to Tampa and it doesn't fit. Well, why does it not fit? Because we need to think about the application here in Tampa, what are our problems, and then work on the solutions as we play it out. So we really need to pause then and say, what are the issues? Who are our users? Where are they going? Why are they going? When are they going? And that's what we know today, and then try to predict that into the future, building on plans that Pete's talking about developing as we move forward with these types of things. So you can see it becomes a whole array of users that are out there that we need to account for as we go through. A lot of studies have been going on by a lot of different groups. HART was out front doing a lot of work recently. When you look at some of the elements that came out of their work, clearly there's population growth, clearly there's employment growth, there's unmet travel demand on a lot of the corridors that are around us and how they play out. There's a lot of travel into and out of the Tampa area. There's a lot of travel intermittent to ourselves, in other words, between USF, between downtown, and between West Shore. All of these are the issues then that we have to flesh out and look at who the users are, again, where they're going, and why are they going. The department has been out there looking at things. There's a lot of work going on right now. You'll hear terms about managed lanes and a network that's been created there. The MPO certainly has been engaged looking at long-range solutions, both from the highway and the transit side, as to how it plays out. T-BARTA has been out and about. They've developed a regional master plan. They recently updated that. You can see some of the statistics that they have involved as to what's going on. And then again, the department's out there, along with the MPO, looking at managed lanes and all the different components on how you move people, how you move freight, and how you move goods, not just how you move cars. There's an interesting study going on as well right now with HART and the Expressway Authority looking at what's called a proof of concept study, and it's building on managed lanes and providing transit-first access and then sell off the capacity behind that to what would be a tolling group. But what you find as you go through, we have so many partners looking at so many different things. If we don't stop and reflect as to what's going on, we're going to end up with a convoluted set of solutions. I promise this is not something in one of Pete's sketches for Nebraska Avenue. So certainly public transportation is something that we need to look at. The timing's right. We know that. We constantly talk about it. There's been a change in the mindset in the local community. Certainly the elements that are going on regionally, statewide, nationally, and even around the world of all the little buzzes that are out there in terms of global warming, oil consumption, air quality, quality of life, economic development, and sustainability are all parts of what we have to consider as we move forward. But as some of the graphics that you saw with Ian, some of the sketches that you saw from Pete, there's certain things that are going to drive success of transit. We just can't simply walk out of here today and have something that's ready, up, and running. We need to look at the operational elements. We need to understand the reliability in the network, the travel time. We need to understand the connections and everything that goes on associated with that, and then the trip time to the user. So I want to go through and make sure that we all kind of understand the terms that we hear and we see and how these different tools and techniques apply to solve the mobility solutions that are out there. There's somewhat a hierarchy, if you will, of transit and transit services, ranging from bus to bus rapid transit, streetcars, light rail, heavy rail, commuter rail, and high-speed rail. And I'm going to illustrate these with some photographs here in a moment. We all know roads, and we're very comfortable talking about roads. So an interesting conversation is, let's compare roads to transit so we understand what their roles are. I've been in several rooms just like this, and you'll hear invariably, I want light rail, I want high-speed rail, I want commuter rail. That's all well and good, but what does that mean, and how does that fit into a fabric of solutions that are playing out? In other words, you need local streets, you need arterial streets, you need your interstates, you need your access control facilities, you need your toll roads, and certainly you need your longer distance trips and short flights. Well, just like you have those on the pavement side, you have them on the rubber-tired and the steel wheel side. So just for reference, just so you can understand how the different services work and some of the accessibility that they provide along the way. Information has been prepared, whether it's through HART, whether it's through TBARTA, whether it's through the department and themselves, about all the different transit characteristics, and I promise I will not go through all this, but please take the opportunity to go online and download some of this information so you understand the terms and the tools that we'll be talking about using as we move forward. Short distance bus, long distance bus, short distance rail, and long distance rail all have different roles in the people moving capacity of what Tampa will become. Bus, we're all very familiar with this. We've seen them, we've ridden them, certainly we've experienced it, so this one's pretty straightforward. Bus rapid transit has a couple of different techniques. You basically pay before you get on the bus. It's very similar to rail. You tend to have different types of vehicles that are available. You have exclusive guideways and running ways, which help for travel times. And then some of the unique things on that picture that just passed in Las Vegas is the technologies on the vehicles to do things that are unbelievable in terms of direct arrivals at the gate, so you have the gap between the vehicle and the curb is very minute. So it's almost like a train coming into a station, that the guidance system on the bus is there. As we kind of work our way up, again in Tampa, we're very familiar with streetcars, their operating capabilities, characteristics, and how they fit into the urban fabric and can be used therein. Similar, you're starting to hear terms across the country of what's modern streetcar. The only difference here is the type of vehicle and the technologies that are available in it in terms of the application. The next one is called light rail, and I'm going to have two things coming up here. One's called light rail, one's called heavy rail. It has nothing to do with the vehicle. It has to do with the person carrying capacity of the system itself. So light rail, as you can see, has the train, but the power source is actually coming from above along a catenary wire. What that allows in an urban setting is for pedestrians to cross the pathway at an intersection, an at-grade crossing, without fear of electrocution. There's technologies out there now that are what are called DMUs. You'll hear the terminology for a diesel unit. Some of those are in place in Texas as to how it works. Station spacings for these systems tend to be a lot longer. You're talking several miles apart for those that have been in some of the other major metropolitan areas. And then at the higher end, you have high-speed rail. I'll just let the pictures go by as a distant memory of what was. Let's all look longingly. Oh, look, there it is. I'm hopeful that it will be back. Now, having the trains and the vehicles is one thing, but where you access them is very important. And this is where guys like Pete and the team are going to really look closely about integrating transit into the communities. Stations come in all shapes, sizes, colors, you name it, as to how and everything's playing out. And the community's already involved looking at this. A lot of folks from the Planning Commission, from the MPO, from the department, and from TBARTA are already establishing the frameworks to get the stations in place, to get the land use that you need to accommodate what's going on. They are prepared, and this is very important when we start to search for federal transportation funds a little bit later on in the life of a project. So, job well done on that. We're getting started and we're heading in the right direction. But again, stations come all shapes, all sizes. Just a few examples as to what's going on are going to flash in front of you, just to give you a sense of what these different facilities can look like. Some of the larger ones, and this is something that will have to be accounted for in the master plan, is an intermodal center. We talked about high-speed rail, we've talked about regional rail, we've talked about light rail, we've talked about BRT, we've talked about traditional bus service. All that's got to come together at some point and provide that transition for folks to be able to move through. Again, stations come in all shapes and all sizes. I promise this is not, Pete, this was not one of your renderings either, unless it got dropped. But at the end of the day, it's really about money, right? We have to figure out a way to pool their resources and pull it together. Talked a little bit earlier in the introductory remarks, what's going on Capitol Hill is frustrating to everyone and how it plays out. So the rules of this game can change, and I fully expect them to. But right now, projects that we're talking about would be funded through the Federal Transit Administration, and at best, they're going to look at this at a 50% as to what they can give you. So you're going to have to come up with a state match and a local match to be able to work through and pay for these components. Now, they are looking at teaming in terms of what's going on with partnerships, and this is where it comes to play when you talk about master planning. With groups like HUD and EPA, and you talk about livability and sustainability, these are programs that can help you get to the livability principles that these federal agencies are looking for to help you garner the funding that you're going to need as you move forward on these types of projects. So I wanted to kind of quickly go through and give you an education on some of the terms and transit technologies that we'll be using as we move forward on the master plan.